This is your host, Eva Melton, and welcome back to Communal Expressions. So today's episode is just full of information, power-packed, and it's relevant because this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So first up, Ms. Renee Smith is coming to share with you all about her advocacy for African American women and some resources that are available to you right here in Alabama for victims of domestic violence. The second segment is dedicated to the Alabama Stand Your Ground law, and so Attorney Richard Rice and Attorney Ontario Tillman of Maxwell Tillman Law Firm discuss the Alabama Stand Your Ground law. So ladies and gentlemen, you'll want to tune in and gain all the information that you need and be inspired to help your own community. Go ahead and tune in. First up, H.E.R by Renee. So everybody, a few weeks ago, I had a chance to visit a brunch that I saw on Eventbrite. Then I saw it again on social media. And although I didn't know anybody going to this brunch, it just stood out to me and I felt like I needed to be there. And so at this brunch, I met Miss Renee Smith. It was launched by H.E.R by Renee. And so Renee, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, so, what stood out to me is that your middle name is Renee. Well, your first name is Renee. My middle name is Renee, and we spell it the same way. So, Renee is spelled
the right
so many
way.
Ways.
That's what you mean.
Yeah,
we spell it the right way.
It's spelled the right way. So, first, let me thank you and your friend for putting on that brunch the other week, because when I walked in, there was just a great energy. And I'm an introvert, so for me to go into a space where I know nobody, actually it took a lot of courage from me, but I felt like I needed to be there, and I'm just so glad I went. So just tell me, what was the premise behind this brunch?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. You were the first person to arrive. So it was just great. And so the whole premise behind the brunch, right? This is a dream deferred. All right. So I really just wanted to create a space for women to come together and support each other and, kind of break down barriers and stereotypes that women can't work together, that we can't have a sisterhood, especially Black women. There's a lot of stereotypes about Black women that I don't believe in, because I have so many positive sisters around me. And I just wanted to create a space where that could be duplicated outside of my own friend group.
Wow.
So that was the premise behind it.
So so H.E.R by Renee. So let's start with, who is Renee?
We just want to dive right in. Huh?
Yeah.
So, a few weeks ago, I would have just said, Renee is a mother of 4 children. I'm in a blended family, and I kind of write a little bit. But now that I've kind of done the brunch, I've kind of launched off. Like that was our first event that we had done, like under our own umbrella. I've done many, many events under different nonprofits, under different companies, but this was the first time that it was under me. And it was weird because I'm like, well, who am I to stand up in front of people and talk this way? But now that you ask me that, I will say I'm a wellness advocate, wellness coach. I'm a writer. And it's always been scary for me to say those things out loud because I feel like these are like hobbies, but honestly, these are God-given gifts that I have been cultivating for years. I've just done it for different people. I've done it under a different umbrella. I was just an employee, and so now I'm using those gifts for what I feel is my true calling, which is to bring people together. I've always said I felt like my position in life is a bridge. There are people on this side and there are resources on this side, and I connect the people to the resources. So that's who I am.
Wow. So let me ask you this then. How does it feel kind of working in your own vineyard, using your own gifts to cultivate the soil versus working in a, for lack of better terminology, another person's vineyard?
It was really empowering for me. I always feel, and maybe I had like the misunderstanding of what like an expert actually was. I thought that experts, they stand up here and they say all these really big words and they, but I really feel like the way that I work is I feed off other people too. I always feel like this. I used to work with children a lot before I started working with adults, and I learned a lot from kids. I always felt like I got something for them as much as I gave to them. And so for me, the whole point of what I'm trying to do, which is a little bit different, like I'm not saying I'm not looking at a bottom line or anything like that, but I'm really about people. And I got a chance to really sit in that space and look at each individual woman that was there and talk to people, not a number, but an actual person. And I feel like sometimes that's what is different when you're kind of able to take the time out under your own umbrella and really get that individual touch that you can't always do when you're on a time crunch, under somebody else's guidance.
Right, that deadline, and a lot of times we're looking at metrics and production, and we can say give statistics of the work that we've done, and sometimes the work that we do in our own vineyard is not going to produce a material result. Sometimes the result is something that you can't see or measure. So that's beautiful. Right. So we know who Renee is, but now H.E.R by Renee. Tell us about H.E.R by Renee.
So H.E.R by Renee, it started off simply as a blog and a cry for help. I was in a situation, I was working at a job that really just was not fulfilling to me. And not only was it not fulfilling to me, I felt like it diminished me. And I had a really hard time in that space because I never thought that I would be that person. Like, I've always been an advocate and I stand up for other people. And then when it came time for me to be brave for myself, I was scared. And I was shocked by that because I never saw myself as being scared. I never saw myself as being intimidated. But I was in a situation where my husband and I, we needed a 2-income household, and I was scared to leave that position, and I was making decent money. And so I was like, well, I mean, it's not that bad. But like, I was having a lot of adverse reactions, a lot of like panic attacks and different things. And so H.E.R by Renee started to be a blog for me. Like, I just started writing out different challenges. Like, I was saying it for other people, but it was really for me. I was like, go after your dreams and, start writing this. And I had these steps. And I was just putting it out there. And I have no idea how many people saw it or anything, but it was just good for me to finally put something out there that was me, that was unfiltered. Because a lot of times I felt like this was who I really was. And I could not rectify that I was living 2 different lives. Like, internally, I felt conflicted, and so that's what the blog became. And then after a while, I started reaching out into the community because I saw all these women around me doing beautiful things in the community. And I was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you get the gumption to say, hey, I see this problem, I want to fix it? So then I started doing interviews. I first started with what I called women of wisdom, which was like some older women that I had kind of met through the community, and I started interviewing them. And then I saw a lot of female entrepreneurs. So then I started, interviewing them, and then I started calling that Working Women's Network. So I was highlighting these women that were, some of these are single lady operations that are really moving and shaking in the city. And for me, it was just great to hear. I'm like, how did you, what did you learn along the way? Again, it was very selfish at first. It was really about me. I'm like, wow, like, this is really cool. But I felt like other people needed to hear their stories. And because I didn't have a story at that point. My story was other people's stories and being able to tell those stories. So that's kind of how it started. And it's kind of evolved since then because now I have a story and I'm telling mine as well. So.
Well, you have a beautiful story. But yeah, so now, is there a particular audience that you are expecting to be impacted by H.E.R by Renee or by your podcast?
Well, women in general, but specifically African-American Black women, because I'm a Black woman. And so I know that there are, sometimes there's issues with creating space for us, and I just want to create, I want to create that space. I feel like, especially with everything that I've gone through, and I've been at organizations, and I'm not going to say like this is across the board, but when you are the minority there, where you are like the only woman or the only Black person or whatever, like, you can feel out of place and you can definitely feel like you don't belong. And I've always wanted to create a space where everybody definitely feel like they belong, but it's specifically Black women, because like I said, there's just so many places that I just feel like we're always told that we can't be here or we can't do this, can't wear your hair this way, can't, it goes down the list. So,
and that is true. That is true. Like, we face issues we face are going to be different from our white sisters. We're going to have some that we have in common. Some of our issues are going to be the same, but some of our issues are going to be different. And we need to be able to express those things in safe places where somebody's like, oh no, I didn't know y'all had that going on, but we can actually just talk about it. And I just think sisterhood is just so important. I have one sister and I have 5 brothers, and it's
Oh,
so funny.
wow.
It's just so different, but I love that sisterhood. And kind of as me growing up, I kind of look at that relationship, the bond that we have, and
Right,
I try to look at that in other women because that is actually formed by our family. But then I try to
right,
cultivate a similar bond with other women, because when my sister rises, I feel like I rise too. But when my
right,
sister gets over some bridge or some stumbling
right.
block, I feel like I have too. And so I think if we can cultivate that type of energy within our own
Agreed,
community and begin to work
agreed,
together in different ways, that we
agreed,
will be more successful as women,
agreed.
and it will ultimately impact our community for the good, the entire community. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. I think
so I
women
love
are
this.
the foundation of community. I really do
Oh
believe that.
my,
Like
yes.
we
I agree. Sometimes I change my terminology so folks will be like, wait a minute, but I agree with you.
yeah, I definitely don't take anything away. I'm married and I totally respect my husband's lane and who he is in my life. But I also know like what I do like within our family. And I feel like women are like that, especially Black women, we put a lot of people before us. A lot of people. We are like last on the totem pole. It'll be husband, kids, job, cat, dog, and then we'll be like somewhere in the bottom. And I just feel, and I've been guilty of it, and I
Right.
just feel like we need a space to
Yes.
uplift each other because we get tired and you cannot pour from an empty cup. And so
That's right.
I'm just always trying to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves too.
Right. And in a culture and an age where busyness, caring for
Mm,
other people is just so prominent. It's almost revolutionary and radical to tell
right.
somebody to slow down and to take care of yourself. It's so
Right.
revolutionary. Everybody looking at you like,
Right.
what? Are we supposed to be saving the world?
Right.
The world gonna
Right.
keep on
Right.
turning.
What I've been telling myself is like even God rested, and I have to remember that I am nowhere near Him. So
Right.
there is a time for all things, and I've been so out of balance before. So it's definitely not a judgment call on anybody. When I say these things,
Right.
I'm talking directly to myself.
Right. And I think honestly, being open to talk, I think when people hear this recording, this podcast, they're gonna just somebody is gonna be reminded that it is okay for me to slow down. It is okay for me to
Absolutely.
refuel myself. It is okay for me to meditate or have time alone
Right.
with nobody. And so these conversations will definitely help somebody. And so that's the beautiful part about being able to be transparent, right? When you're podcasting, there's nobody saying you got 10 more minutes left, you got this amount of
Right.
time left, or it can go in this place. You can't say this, you can't say that. We really get to say what needs to be said, and there's so much that need to be said for African American women.
I agree.
So, this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I know
Yeah.
you do a lot of work in the community, and I just want to first
Yeah.
hear from you. Why do you feel like this month, this domestic violence, why do you feel like we need this kind of some emphasis on domestic violence awareness?
Well, one thing I want to say is, we just recently had a young lady, she was 17 years old, that was murdered by her ex-boyfriend who was 28. Um, it's important for us because we are being killed, you know, um, and we're in situations where sometimes the society is not kind to victims, and there's a lot of victim blaming that kind of goes on. Whether you want to look at like sexual assault kind of mixed in with the domestic violence, to me, it's just something that has been hidden for way too long. And I know in a lot of families, we hide dysfunction sometimes. We don't talk to other people, we isolate. And I think actually having a month where somebody can actually come out and say, I was a victim, I survived, I left, it's empowering to somebody else who's in that situation who doesn't even know where to begin, doesn't even know that they can leave or what are the resources, because leaving, of course, is the most dangerous time for a woman. And so
Right.
having this conversation to me is vitally important because a lot of times it's not happening in our families. We kind of
Mm-hmm.
talk around issues, but
We do.
when you have something that is directly, this is the title of it, domestic violence awareness, like that is the title. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no sugarcoating. It just kind of is what it is. And so to me, it's important to label a thing a thing.
That's right.
So
That's
that's
right.
why I think it's
And
important.
that case of the young lady getting killed by her ex, was that in Birmingham?
It was not. It's a national story.
Okay.
It's been kind of shared around because she was basically saying that she had got out of the situation and she was trying to empower other women. And like I said,
Mm-hmm.
leaving is the most dangerous time. And a lot of
Right.
people, they think, okay, well, I'm just done. Domestic violence rarely starts with a first kick or a punch.
Right.
A lot of times it's mental. They try to break the victim down. It's isolation. Um, it's taking away money, access, resources. I think she even said on there he broke several of her phones. And so sometimes we don't look at things and again, call a thing a thing. Well, he just pushed me. He didn't punch me this time. Like there's like levels to that.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of seeing it as just automatic, like that's disrespectful to me as a person, like having our boundaries kind of set firm about what we're going to do and what we're not going to, take. It's just good to have these conversations even before sometimes you get into a relationship, especially for our young sisters. Like
Mm-hmm.
you think that you know what love looks like, and
Right.
it doesn't quite look like on TV, but it definitely does not look like somebody hitting on you.
Right. Or talking down to you or making you feel bad about yourself or not respecting your
Right,
boundaries.
right.
There is a case that's going on in Selma that I'll plug you in on about, but you probably want to
Mm,
get caught up on it. But there is a lady they're attempting to prosecute down there
mm,
in that type of situation for something that
mm.
happened in that type of situation. So I'll send you a link to what's going on with that.
Okay,
So just so you know that we've got something actively happening in Birmingham that is kind of starting to get some state and national attention as well
wow,
around
good.
this topic. So, but if there's a woman that's listening that's being impacted by domestic violence, and
Right,
so just to remind you guys, it's not just the physical component, but the emotional
right,
component, the mental abuse, the financial abuse.
right.
There's some symptoms that are out there, things that you can look for, because sometimes when you've been exposed to something, you're just like, oh, that's not a symptom, you know.
Right,
But
right,
if you just
right.
kind of step back out of it and look at it, yes, it probably is a symptom, and you can probably, if you see some things starting to escalate. So, Renee, tell us about some resources that are out there for women
Sure,
who may be experiencing domestic violence, or they're not sure, but they just feel like they need some help.
sure. So there's a place that's fairly new in Birmingham. It's called One Place Family Justice Center, and it's phenomenal because the reason it's called One Place is everything is in one place. There's police officers that are there. There's a crisis center representative that's there. There's somebody from YWCA that's there. If somebody was a victim of a sexual assault, they also have SANE nurses that are there. It's a very welcoming place, non-judgmental. You can go there, talk to somebody, and figure out what your next steps will be. And you don't have to go to all these different places. So before One Place was actually set up, you would have to like go to the police department, file a report, and you'd have to go to court and do all these things. They have lawyers that are there as well. So it's literally like a one-stop shop for somebody who's going through a very tough time. Because when you're in a situation, you just want a solution like right now, and they're able to kind of point you in the right direction. And so I have their phone number. It's
Okay.
205-453-7261. That's 453-7261.
That's awesome. And then for
There's
anybody that's, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I have like just a few more. There's
Okay, go
also
right
the
ahead.
crisis center. The crisis center you can always call. They have a 24-hour number that you can call if you're just needing somebody to kind of talk to. One of the tips that I always would like to tell people too, if you're looking this stuff up, definitely clear out your browser history. Erase the number from
Mm,
your phone. Do different things, especially if you know the person is checking your phone. Try to, as best you can, not to have any evidence of you trying to seek help on anything on your home computer. I know a lot of times with Apple, their stuff links up. So just be careful with what you're doing. If you have to use a friend's phone or, something of that nature, definitely do that as well. But the crisis center number is 323-7777. And you can call them and talk to somebody too. Sometimes we just need somebody to talk to, and we can't talk, or we feel like we can't talk to other people. So those are
mm.
two resources that I think will definitely point people in the right direction. I think YWC also has like counseling resources or support groups, and those are just, I think, really good ways for women to know, number one, they're not alone. A lot of times, a victim will feel isolated because they have been isolated by the perpetrator, and so just knowing that you're not alone, um, and that you can actually leave, and there are people out there that are willing to help you. 'Cause I know a lot of times they'll say nobody's going to help you, nobody's going to do this, and a lot of times they may have kids, so it gets
Mm-hmm.
very complicated. It gets very, very complicated very fast. But if you're in fear of anything, um, I would definitely try to start there first.
Yes, yes. And for anybody that's listening, I know the YWCA, they have like a group session on Monday, and then you can also do individual counseling. And so I have found that, and it's free, like that's funded by a grant. And I have found that it's been helpful, like women, like if you've come out of a domestic violence situation, that is
Right,
awesome. But sometimes
right,
the impact of it
right,
mentally and psychologically and emotionally can still be there. And if you feel like you're struggling with trust, struggling with, thinking
right.
somebody's behind you, or you feel like it's impacting your other relationships, I would say definitely get a therapist, go to counseling. The YWCA
Right.
has some awesome um, therapists that are there, and they've personally helped some people that I've known, and it's free. So, and it's
Right.
confidential, but you can kind of get back on your feet, and you're just not alone. You're not alone.
Right.
And it's a topic many people won't talk about. And me being a minister, just seeing how when it comes to the church, you can barely get, we can wear breast cancer colors, but you can barely get
Right.
somebody to wear purple for domestic
Right.
violence. So I'm always in purple during this month as much as I
Mm.
can be. And I just think that
Yeah.
as the church community, we need to start highlighting this just a little bit better. And so I
Agree.
kind of take some, I try to make sure if it's not being talked about in my church, I'm at least reaching out, making
Right.
sure that I reach out to my clergy brothers and sisters like, hey, I know I saw y'all do breast cancer awareness Sunday.
Right.
What's going on the other
Right.
3 Sundays? So so I'm good at calling people out. So that's just what I do. So
I love it.
I just appreciate you coming on, but I did notice, and I'm so excited about it because I've been podcasting for like 2 years, that
Wow.
you have a podcast. Tell me
I
about this
do.
podcast.
Okay, so my podcast is called Her Talks, and gosh, it really came about because I was making these little videos like on Snapchat, and my brother-in-law was like, Renee, like the topics you're talking about, like this needs to be something that doesn't disappear in a day. He's like, you really need to start, putting your stuff out there. And I was like, I don't know if anybody's gonna, because first of all, on Snapchat I had like 5 people because I don't follow anybody, and so I was just like, this is just my little random thoughts, and I was like, I don't know if I want to put, something out there for the masses. And he said, no, he said, Renee, like your experience is something that other people need to kind of hear. And so Her Talks kind of focuses in on everything blended Black and business. So
Mm,
I'm in a blended family. I have 4 children.
wow.
I have a bonus son that's 8, a biological son that's 8, a
Mm-hmm.
little boy that is 3, turning 4 in January, and a 15-month-old, all boys.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of highlight some of their things. I'm working on my next one, which should be out by the time this podcast airs. It's actually called Black Boy Joy.
Oh my.
And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to me to highlight my children as children. And
Mm-hmm.
I talk about this a little bit on there, but African American children are usually casted as way older than their actual normal age, like sometimes 4.5 to 5 years older. So you could have an 8-year-old boy that people are looking at as a teenager. You can have a teenager that they're looking at as a grown man. And some of these things, these attributes that our kids have by being
Mm,
so tall and athletic, those are great things like on the field or on the court, but those are the same things that intimidate some people that can cause them to lose their lives in real life. And
right.
so it's important for me to humanize my babies because to me they are babies, and for people to understand that these Black kids running around here, playing basketball and playing Roblox are just like your kids, in the country clubs. They're kids.
Mm-hmm.
They make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes and they're learning and they're growing. And I just want to ensure that my kids are able to kind of see adulthood. So I talk about that, and I also talk about like me trying to start my own business, and I'm a co-owner with my husband with his fitness business, By Soul Fitness, and so I talk about like us getting started and what that kind of looks like, and it's really just highlights of my life and my random thoughts. And I just feel like I said, I am an advocate through and through. I've been this way my whole life. Like literally, my daddy used to call me his little Angela Davis. I was always stuff always bothered me, and I never understood. Even as a small child, I would see
Oh,
different
me
things on
too.
TV, and I was like, I don't understand how people just go on about their lives with all this going on. And so this is just me talking about that, me highlighting some things that I think are important and really speaking on issues that some people may be afraid to speak about in just life. And so that's what Her Talks is. It's just me talking and hopefully somebody listening.
Yeah, somebody's listening. I just think it's beautiful. I really do.
Thank you.
And honestly, people just need to hear another perspective because mass media presents us some stuff that's just not
Right.
true. And there's
Agreed.
always a motive behind it. And so if you can tell your own story, that's
Hmm.
beautiful. That's beautiful. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, is there anything you want to leave with a woman or even a gentleman that may be listening on today?
Yeah, I would like to say get started. Like whatever it is, whatever is in your spirit, whatever been like hanging over your head, just get started. I started the brunch, and that's how I ended up on your podcast. That's how we were able to meet and connect, which I just love so much because like I had no idea. I'm like, look at all these people. When I looked at that room, I mean, we had
Yeah, it was
26
good.
to like mid 40s. I mean, in all
Yes.
kinds of life experience, but we were all searching for the same thing, and that's sisterhood. So it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are, you have something inside of you that other people need, and we'll never get that if you don't start. So start today, whatever it is. If you're trying to write a book, write one sentence today. If you want to do
Awesome.
a podcast, download an app today. Like just do something today that's going to go towards your dream.
Yes, yes. So tell us how we can find you. So first I want to know about all your social media pages, your website, and then how can we subscribe to your podcast?
Okay, yeah. So I have a website. It's herbyrenee.com. And so Renee is spelled the correct way, and that's Renee.
Yes, it
And
is.
yeah, and all my social media is the same. So on Facebook, it's Her by Renee. On Instagram, it's Her by Renee. Yeah, and I also, on my Her by Renee page, I also do another live talk that I have entitled with my best friend Danny, who did the brunch with me, called Yes, I Have a Therapist, that comes out
Mm,
every second Monday at 6 o'clock, and that's just us talking about wellness. Us
awesome.
talking about using a therapist to get well. Us, coping with different things. We talked about consent last time. We're talking about healthy relationships this upcoming Monday. So that's where I am. Herbyrenee.com. Her by Renee on all my social media platforms, and the podcast should be able to be found on pretty much anywhere you listen to a podcast.
Mhm.
I use the Anchor app to make the podcast, but it's supposed to be distributed on like Google Podcasts and Spotify and all over the place. But yeah, if you go on herbyrenee.com, you'll be able to listen to the podcast on there as well.
Well, awesome. Awesome. Well, Renee, thank you so much for joining us on today. I really
Thank you
appreciate
for
your
having me.
energy. Yeah, and I appreciate your energy. I appreciate what you're doing in the community. And it's only up from here. And it's because you
Thank
decided to start with what you felt passionate about.
you. Right. Start today.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Results with Richard Rice. I am the host of the show, and we want to welcome all our listeners back. This is actually our second show, so we're excited about that. We have a great guest with us today, a very knowledgeable attorney, colleague, and a brother, Mr. Ontario Tillman of the Maxwell Law Firm, soon to be Maxwell Tillman.
That's correct.
That's right. Welcome to the show. How you feeling this evening?
Yeah, I feel good. I appreciate you having me on today.
Yes, sir. It's definitely our privilege and honor to have you on the show. And we got a lot of questions for you. We're gonna learn more about who you are and how you're managing your practice in downtown Birmingham. And we have an exciting topic today. We're going to be speaking about the Stand Your Ground law here in Alabama.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts, the fundamentals with it, but we're also going to speak a little bit about the application,
Yes.
because it's obviously something that is going to be applied, at the first instance by the police, and then the prosecutor is going to, have a decision to make, and then even potentially a jury and a
Yes.
judge as well. And so we want to talk about how the law in black and white is played out through perception, and in our society is, we definitely have to always take into account one's socioeconomic status and their race as well. So we want to get into those topics on the show. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about the origin, the birth of results with Richard Rice. It's a critical part of the legal practice that I'm involved in with the Rice Firm LLC, which is a public interest law firm. What we really want to do with the show is begin to elevate public awareness, bring attention and knowledge to the public so that we can empower them to sometimes take a more proactive role in preventing some of the legal issues that may cause us to, even need an attorney. And then in some instances, when we're dealing with public interest law, an individual may have a particular legal issue that has ramifications on society as a whole or on the general public. And so the only way we can really be able to work collectively and cooperate to bring about a difference is if we all have this fundamental baseline information. And so results with Richard Rice is a step in that direction to begin to bring awareness to some of these key issues like the Stand Your Ground law.
Yeah, and I want to say congratulations to you on creating this type of show and this type of platform, which is needed.
Yes, sir.
And it's a big congratulations to you on that.
I appreciate that. I really do. And it's really important for us as colleagues and members of this, this age-old profession. I try to think about, how long the legal profession has been around, since
long time.
I know biblical times, right? And so it's just one of those things where it makes you really, for me, when I say humility, I don't really mean bowing down, but it really makes me, feel honored to be a member of this profession.
Absolutely.
And I also want to, carry the torch well while I'm able to do so, because I know that we stand on the shoulders of so many other great attorneys that have come before us.
Yes, absolutely. So many great attorneys, and it's a great profession, even though sometimes it's not viewed that way by the public at large. But as I always say, you love a lawyer when you need one.
That's it. Hey, I'm telling you, you took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say that. It's like everybody has their favorite lawyer joke, and they all have this perception of how bad lawyers are, but when they need one, and they love you. You can become
friends.
That's it.
They
Exactly.
call you all the time, text you all the time. You're right.
That's it, man. I tell you, you and it's like a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week type of job as well.
Never closes.
And it's a labor of love. You got to really be passionate about it to do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, it's good to have you on the show. I just want to give a shout out to Rhonda Robinson and Carmine Communications because they've done an excellent job in terms of really helping us create this platform and allowing us to be able to have this type of dialogue and conversation on the air. And this is really the first step. This is the first step. This is our second show. So we're still learning. We're growing. We're going to be working out some of the wrinkles and kinks and all of those things that happen when you first start something new. But it's a learning process, a growing process. So we're educating the public, but we appreciate y'all's feedback too. And so if you see ways to help us improve the show or just topics that you'd like for us to talk about, potential guests, things like that, feel free to let us know. You can reach out to me on our firm's website, of course, and you can call into the show. This is Talk Radio, so if you're listening, you have a question, call in at 205-941-1011, or you can call in at 1-866-551-9933. We definitely like to have your feedback on the show, and so. That's enough about the show right now. I want to talk about our guests. I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about yourself, Mr. Tillman, where you're from, what law school you went to, how long you've been in practice, and tell us about the practice and some of the new beginnings that you're experiencing right now.
Okay, well, born and raised in Bessemer, Alabama, and I've been practicing right now for since 2012.
Okay.
I attended Miles Law School.
Okay.
I graduated in 2012, and I've been practicing ever since.
Right.
I opened my first office in Bessemer. I opened it in Bessemer, and this is my hometown, and I wanted to go back to, to help the people of the city of Bessemer, and I was proud to do so.
Right.
I also attended Alabama A&M University, which, go Bulldogs. I always got.
That's right. Hey, I'm from Huntsville. I'm with you on that all the way.
You got to let that be known. And other than that, I started out with my practice in criminal defense,
right,
as well as some domestic relations with family law, things of that nature.
Okay.
And recently, in 2017, I started doing of counsel work with Leroy Maxwell.
Yes, sir.
And we've been practicing together ever since.
Right.
And just recently became a partner.
Well, congratulations on that.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
And so now we call Maxwell Tillman.
Right.
So we handle a lot of criminal defense issues as well as civil rights.
Definitely.
And we also do personal injuries and still do some domestic relations as well as family.
Excellent, excellent. And so, Maxwell Tillman is a firm that's growing really quickly. You all have handled some high-profile cases.
Yes.
I can't think of the name of the young lady, but it was a case involving rape out of University of Alabama, and it was a
case.
Yeah, the Rondini case, and there was a poor response from the administration, and actually some efforts to cover it up by the local officials and everything. And I don't know, you guys may not be able to talk about that specifically.
We can't really talk about it right now.
But that just means you did your job well, and so you all have handled all types of cases. And if whenever I'm have any type of criminal cases, Leroy is usually the first person I reach out to because I've known him. But now I can actually reach out to you as well. This is our first time actually formally meeting, even though I've been paying attention to you becoming a part of the firm and now being a partner. You got your lovely family here with you too as well. You want to give them a shout out for sure for being here and supporting you.
My lovely wife, Yvette Tillman, and my daughter, Aria.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good,
they
man.
wanted to come and hang out and see how things done.
Definitely, yeah.
And like you said about Leroy, excellent attorney.
Yeah.
It was a no-brainer to actually want to partner with him.
Right. Yeah, I can see both of you guys are family men. You got a good foundation, and that's something that's necessary because, like we talked about, this job can 24/7. It can pull you in so many different directions.
Yeah, definitely.
It's good to have that type of support at home and really remind you why you do it sometimes. And you all just moved into a new office downtown, a great location, next door to one of my favorite restaurants that I really can't afford to eat at anymore. But it's right next door to Your Mama's,
yes,
and
the food is great. we spend most of our time over there trying to eat the food.
I understand.
Instead of practicing, but moving to a great location,
right?
And you need to come by and check it out. It's a nice location.
Definitely will do so. I know you all had like an event over there for Joe Singleman.
Yes, for Joe Singleman.
Just like
great
maybe
event. Great event. Turned out to be great, and we just excited.
Yeah, it was a good event. I wish I could have made it there. I'm really impressed with the way that Joe and his team are running that campaign. So we're looking forward to having some good results out of that.
Exactly. He will be great as the AG of the state of Alabama.
Definitely. So, we have a short show, 30 minutes. We really want to try to jump into our topic here. We're going to be talking about the Stand Your Ground law, specifically here in Alabama. And so you are the resident expert today, Attorney Tillman. So tell us.
I don't know how much I would believe that, but
yes, sir. You are. You are, definitely, indeed. And so tell us a little bit about Stand Your Ground law in the state of Alabama, just generally. What are the basics of it? What do our listeners need to know?
In a nutshell, it's Alabama self-defense law,
right,
which allows a person to defend themselves or protect themselves from unlawful physical force that is being used against them. And the person who the force is being used against has to reasonably believe that they are in the threat of imminent force or some unlawful harm.
Right, exactly. And so that's a good description. I think that's something that everybody can digest and comprehend and be able to go out and talk to their friends about it later and kind of have a more informed conversation about some of these stories that are going on in the media. But what's the basic distinction between Stand Your Ground law and just a general self-defense?
Well, in Alabama, they removed the element of retreat.
Okay.
You don't have to retreat anymore. So essentially standing your ground. So if you are met with some type of unlawful force, you can actually stand your ground to defend yourself. And also has to be a degree to it as well. So the way some judge that I read a while ago, that it has to be, a slap has to be met with a slap. You can't someone slaps you and then you go get a gun and shoot them.
Right.
That's the misapplication of it. So it has to be met with the same degree of force that is being used against you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's similar to some of the things we talk about with police in terms of, this continuum of force and, maybe even some correctional officers, they used to use it as their standard. I don't know if they still do, but it's still a useful tool to kind of think about it. If someone pushes you or slaps you, then is it really reasonable that you feel like that your life is in danger?
Yeah.
And so could you use deadly force in that situation?
And it's not personal.
Right.
When you're looking at the reasonable standard, it's an objective standard.
Right.
And you have to look at it from a reasonable person standpoint. So if a reasonable person was in this situation, would they have responded with the same force in the same way? So like you said, someone slaps you or pushes you, you can't go get a bat and hit them across the head.
Exactly.
And then now you're thinking that, I was just standing my ground. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, that's good information to know, and I guess my next question then is somewhat related. I really want to know then, what is required to invoke this defense? I mean, and, at what stage does it take place? Because obviously if I'm in a position where I felt like I had to defend myself, I've used deadly force, I call the police arrive on the scene, I tell them exactly what happened, maybe I even have a witness here who confirms what I'm saying. Surely they're not going to charge me with murder, are they? Or how would it work?
Well, everything is based, case by case, situation. Everything is based upon the facts of your case, as well as the evidence of your case.
Right.
Most of the time when you are charged with a manslaughter charge or a murder charge and you want to invoke the stand your ground issue and element into the case, you can do it in a couple of ways. You can do it in a pretrial where you'll have a hearing just on the stand your ground portion of your case, and it's a preponderance of the evidence type issue. So if the judge believes that by the preponderance of the evidence that you had a right to stand your ground, then the case is dismissed. You have immunity, you are immune from further prosecution. Even if you do decide to do a pretrial hearing and you are either denied the stand your ground motion, you can still carry the self-defense to the jury trial, where you can ask the judge to give a jury instruction on stand your ground, and now you have to let the jury decide.
Okay, well, that's a really good explanation there. I like that. I mean, that's good information. So you kind of get two bites at the apple, so to speak, in that situation.
Yes, you do. Yeah,
and then, what about on the very front end of it? Does the police officer, to what extent does a police officer and then a prosecutor have discretion to make a determination that, this was a justifiable homicide?
Yes.
Clearly. I mean, there's no way that a reasonable juror or judge would find that this was not a justifiable homicide. So is that within the realm of possibility?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. Based upon the facts, based upon what the police officers gathered from the scene of the crime, and when the prosecution come in to review the situation, then they can make that determination.
Excellent. This is a great conversation that we're having on Stand Your Ground Law in Alabama. This is Results with Richard Rice. We're going to head into a break. We'll invite you all to join us back on the flip side of that, and we'll continue this conversation with attorney Ontario Tillman.
Thanks for listening to Results with Richard Rice, a Carmine Communication production.
Dare you say that my behavior is unacceptable? So condescending, unnecessarily critical. I have the tendency of getting very physical. So watch your step, cause if I do, you need a miracle. You drain me, die, and make me wonder why I'm even here.
Welcome back to the show. This is Richard Rice on Results with Richard Rice, and we're here this afternoon with attorney Ontario Tillman of Maxwell Tillman, and located in Birmingham, Alabama. Mr. Tillman, go ahead and tell us about where your firm's located and give us the contact information.
Okay. All right. The firm is located at 2326 2nd Avenue North, Birmingham. And you can reach us at area code 216-3304.
Perfect. Good, good. We always want our listeners to be able to follow up with our guests. Should they have some follow-up questions or they may have a legal issue or anything.
You can go to our website as well, mxlawfirm.com.
Excellent, excellent. And so before the break, we were talking about stand your ground law. We went through the basics about, what the law entails. We distinguished it from standard self-defense law in Alabama. We talked about the process and which a defendant would potentially invoke that defense and how that would unfold in a criminal procedure type of manner. And, I wanted to kind of go ahead and move a little bit beyond that and talk about, move away from an academic understanding to a more practical understanding.
Absolutely.
And, tell me a little bit about what you've seen in terms of how it's applied, in terms of what's a reasonable standard for person A or person B. I mean, we may have an inmate who's incarcerated. What's the standard for that person to invoke that type of defense? Or what about a battered woman? Or what about a police officer? Or someone who's being robbed on the street? All of these different scenarios bring a different set of facts, and we have to be willing to look at one's demographic background and their socioeconomic background. Have you seen any disparities in your time in practice, or what are your thoughts?
Of course, how the law is applied generally. Certain situation, it's applied differently. And as you said, based upon the facts of the case, everything is case by case.
Right.
So if you're looking at the situation, let's say you have person A has an issue with person B, and person A attacks person B and uses a knife. At that moment, person B does not have any requirement to retreat. They can actually stand their ground at that moment and actually can meet the degree of force that is used against them. So if this person has a knife and they are trying to attack you and you feel you reasonably believe that you are in fear of imminent harm at that moment with deadly force, then you can respond in kind.
Right.
So if you had a weapon on you, as far as a gun or something like that, if you were to use it, then you can invoke your stand your ground rule at that point.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I understand that. I could follow that. And I think that's something that our listeners can appreciate. And if you're listening right now, you want to join the conversation, go ahead and give us a call at 205-941-1011 or 1-866-551-9933. We'd love to have you join the conversation. And we were just discussing some of the disparities in which stand your ground laws could be applied. And if you could talk a little bit about this this issue of what is prosecutorial discretion and how does that impact stand your ground law?
Well, the prosecutor at that point in the case will actually review the case, looking at the facts, looking at the evidence, whether or not stand your ground would apply or what type of law to charge this particular person with.
Right.
And if they review the case and they believe that, that the stand your ground applies in this case, they can dismiss the case at that point. So, they do control everything. They control it from the start to finish, up until the jury trial.
Yeah.
And that's just how, this is how our system works.
That's how the system works. And I mean, on one hand, I guess the good side about it is that these are elected officials.
Yes.
So we have within our power to be able to give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down every, election cycle. And it's something that's important, in terms of voting right now here in Jefferson County. On the ballot, we have Jefferson County Sheriff.
Yes.
And we also have the Jefferson County District Attorney on the ballot. And so if you're listening, I would encourage you to do your research and find out, some of the, the prosecutorial style, some of the beliefs and whatnot of the prosecutor. Danny Carr
is
definitely.
a great choice.
Yeah,
you're out listening. He's a great choice. And
definitely.
You want to vote for him.
That's true. Definitely. I would encourage you all to vote for Danny Carr as well. He's running a strong campaign.
Yes, he is.
And the election's in November, so we're nearing the finish line, but we definitely want to finish strong.
And in Bessemer with District Attorney Washington.
Yes.
Great District Attorney.
Definitely. She is. She's done a good job. And
Yes,
it's my understanding, I believe she was the first black woman to be elected to District Attorney in the county.
I call her judge because that's when I met her when she's a municipal court judge. So, great District Attorney.
Yeah, you always got to show that deference,
Yes.
She, once a judge, always a judge.
Always a judge, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And so, I mean, in anything in our society, race is a factor, and so that can create disparities. Also, one's socioeconomic status. You talked a little bit about the fact that you have two bites at the apple, but you really, in terms of your ability to have competent legal counsel, I mean, that's a big component in your ability to effectively make that argument. And so, just based on that factor alone, everyone is not going to have equal access to the law. You know, as attorneys, that's something that we really want to try to guard against. But in some ways, our hands are kind of tied unless we can take these issues to the legislature and make sure that
and
it's fair. Yeah, and change it. Yeah.
And we do have great attorneys at
Right.
every level.
Right.
We have great attorneys in the public defender's office.
true.
You also have great attorneys who are appointed on your case.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks kind of look down on appointed attorneys, but they are good attorneys.
Right.
And they are there to do their job, and a lot of them do their job. I was appointed counsels on a lot of cases as well, which is a good thing because it also shows the judge has confidence in you to actually represent this person in the proper way, and that's how our system works. And then you also can go out and retain an attorney, and
Right.
That's where you're saying that the economics come to play in that situation.
That's true. And I mean, in my opinion, I believe we're extraordinarily blessed here to be in the city of Birmingham, Bessemer, surrounding Birmingham metro area here in Jefferson County because of we have elected judges that reflect the demographic makeup of the citizens here, and so a lot of times we are able to maybe navigate through these disparities differently than you would find in surrounding counties, just based on just the historic nature of our country, right? I mean, that's a big factor to consider too.
Yes, it is. And to be honest, Jefferson County has a great bench.
Right.
It does.
Yeah.
And Birmingham and Bessemer.
Right.
Great bench. You got knowledgeable judges who understand the law and who will apply the law fairly.
Right.
And you really do have that in Jefferson County, and I enjoy practicing in front of all of the judges in Jefferson County.
Most definitely. I definitely would give an amen to that.
Yes,
absolutely. I agree with you completely on that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit briefly. We're at 3:24. Time flies, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the Stand Your Ground issue that has recently arisen in Selma, Alabama. A young lady by the name of Jacqueline Dixon was charged with murder on July 31st after she believed that she needed to use deadly force to defend herself against her husband. Now, based on court documents, she had been subjected to domestic violence and abuse at the hands of this individual for several years. And on this particular occasion, she said that she felt as though her life was in danger. This is based on reports that I'm reading online.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then she ultimately used deadly force. She shot the young man a couple of times, twice in the chest. When police arrived on the scene, he was unresponsive. She was charged with murder. Her bond has been set at $100,000, and it's my understanding that she has a preliminary hearing. I don't know if it's the actual Stand Your Ground hearing that's coming
the prelim.
up.
Yeah.
It's the prelim, which comes before the
before the pretrial on the Stand Your Ground issue.
And in this particular case, I don't know all the facts, but I understand that this is somebody who actually even had a protective order in place, an injunction from a judge that said, you guys got to stay away from each other because one of you has been abusive. And then this lady on this particular occasion felt like her life was in danger, still charged with murder, bond still set at $100,000. What are your initial thoughts when you hear about that, and what would be some of your concerns if you were going to be representing someone like Ms. Dixon?
Well, personally, I do believe that Stand Your Ground should apply in that situation.
Right.
When you look at the past domestic violence abuse against her, as well as if you're looking at the PFA that was in place to protect her from that. And then I also would like to know the facts of the encounter. At the moment where she shot the young man and killed the young man, what took place? Did he, attack her? Was he attempting to attack her? Did he have a weapon in his hand? You want to look at all of that information to make sure that when you do have your Stand Your Ground and pretrial hearing, that you can put forth these facts of the case and the evidence of this case so she can be immune from further prosecution, because based upon what I'm hearing from the report, I do believe that Stand Your Ground should apply.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those things where, we hope and pray, and I understand she has a legal team that's going to be representing her in court, and she has so many people even that have reached out to me. I've, done several press releases on her behalf to try to bring attention to this issue, and attorneys from local and afar, from various nonprofits across the nation, local attorneys who have agreed to offer their time on a volunteer basis. That goes back to your point about, some of these perceptions about economics or legal practice. Yes, they're true, but there's always exceptions, and there's ways around those types of things.
We do tons of work for a lot of people. It's attorneys across the board. You help people whenever you can help people, and that's what we do in this profession. But it's not it's not celebrated as much because people think about lawyers saying they only want the money and they want this and they want that. But in a lot of cases, people are out here doing good work.
Definitely, yeah, that's so true, and that's we can use this platform,
exactly.
to elevate those things, and we're going to continue to do that, and have guests on the show like yourself, and Leroy. Y'all are doing great work here in Birmingham, and I know y'all going to continue to grow and continue to do positive things out there. And I just want to say thank you for being on the show.
No problem.
And I wanted to also before we call it come to the end of the show, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about this case involving Botham. Okay, all right. This case called Botham Jean, this young individual out of Dallas, Texas. We actually have a caller on the line, so I'm going to come right back to that thought. Okay. But first, let me see if we can take this caller. Hey, caller, thanks for calling in. You're on the air.
Hi, I have a question for your guest.
Sure.
My name is Pam Watson, and I wanted to ask him about the Stand Your Ground law in reference to Trayvon Martin. So I understand he said that you have to use force for force. I think that's what he said. And I'm trying to understand what happened when they got into the fight and he ended up getting killed, and the Trayvon Martin didn't even have a weapon on him.
Well, that's the standard barrier of this case. That's of the stand your ground issue. That's the case that kind of started everything from that point. And you're right. When you're looking at it, you do look at it from the point of degree versus degree of force. But based upon the case, from the facts that I do remember of the case, they were saying that the gentleman, Zimmerman, his head was being bashed against the ground, and he felt at that moment that he was in imminent fear of death or harm, and decides to use a weapon to kill young Trayvon.